Joining us now, Fox News senior strategic analyst, retired four-star General Jack Keane. General, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Yeah, great to be here, Shannon.
Okay, let's start there with Secretary Blinken's visit, because based on everything that Lucas just outlined there, a lot of folks don't think our top diplomat should reward them with a trip. That includes Congressman Michael Waltz.
Here we have our Secretary of the State on the international stage after harassing our ships, harassing our planes, literally breaking into military bases in Alaska, the spy balloon, and now the revelation of a spy base right on our shores in Cuba. At what point do we take a tough stand and say you don't get a meeting until this bad behavior stops and we put conditions on our diplomacy?
His colleague, Congressman Mike Gallagher, wrote this week, the siren song of engagement invariably leads to appeasement in the face of foreign aggression. So should the secretary be there? And if so, what should his message be?
I don't have any problem with the secretary going. I think we have to have discussions with our number one adversary in the world. I think the issue we all have is diplomacy dealing with this aggressive nation has real limits. Look, we are two economic, military, and technology superpowers, and we have fundamentally incompatible and irreconcilable differences. That's the reality of what we're dealing with. And when we have entered into diplomatic phases, take the previous administration, in good faith, the president was diplomatically engaged with President Xi, his advisors were, but at the end of the day, when I spoke to his senior advisors and they said, you know, General, despite all the overtures we made to China and all the good words that were exchanged, nothing changed. Their aggressive action at the expense of the United States was in full motion. Nothing ever slowed down. And we have to go into these discussions with that in mind. At a minimum, let's make certain that the military people are talking to each other, that in case there is a mishap, a miscalculation, a misinterpretation, that we can pick up the phone and talk to somebody on the other end who we have some kind of a relationship with that person, despite the differences in our strategic and national goals that are taking place here. We have to come to the realization that it's our actions that are going to make the difference with China, not our words. And that is most significant. What am I talking about? One is we got to make certain that we continue our export controls that we started with semi-conductors, do more of it. Secondly, economic decoupling on a very selective basis, not completely, nobody's suggesting completely. Third, making certain that we're arming Taiwan. We're learning a heck of a lesson in Ukraine. And we have to catch up militarily in the Indo-Pacific region. They're dominating. Those are actions. Those actions make a difference in China's pursuit of its goals.
You mentioned how it impacts what's happening in Ukraine, the messaging, the optics of what they take from that with Taiwan as well. I want to get to Ukraine in a second, but first I want to ask you about Iran. This extensive reporting that there's some kind of informal conversation about a deal coming together with regard to their nuclear program. The White House, Antony Blinken himself has said there's inaccurate reporting. It's not true. There's no deal. The Wall Street Journal is very skeptical about this whole thing. They say this, the editorial board, color us skeptical that an unwritten agreement without clear technical restrictions would compel Iran to reinstall monitoring equipment, turn over data, or submit to enhanced inspections. When the, quote, understanding inevitably crumbles, Iran would face the world from a stronger position. We're talking about wiping out bans on billions of dollars that would flow in and allowing them to continue things. What do you make of this? Should we be negotiating with them?
I mean, to give them another windfall of cash like we did as a result of the 2015 nuclear deal, which led to an expansion of their proxy wars in the Middle East. It doesn't make any sense. It's not in our national interest. It's not in our strategic interest in the Persian Gulf, in the interest of our Arab allies and in Israel whatsoever, because we know what they're going to do with it. They're going to fuel their proxy wars, and that they're seeking domination and control in the Middle East. That's the windfall that's going to take place for what? For holding them at 60% enrichment and curtailing some activities against Syria and Iraq? No, it's not a good deal. It wasn't a good deal in 2015. It's not a good deal now.
I know there are concerns among some members in Congress, too, that this deal may be an attempt, if there is one, to go around them, their ratification process, and them not getting a voice in it. So let's talk Ukraine. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said this week, as the counteroffensive is heating up there, here is his priority.
What I remain focused on is making sure that we're providing Ukraine the security assistance that it needs to be successful in this fight.
How do you think the U.S. is doing on that front, providing them that assistance they need, and how is the counteroffensive going?
We've provided good assistance. It hasn't been timely enough, and it hasn't been completely enough. As an example, the Russians are using fighters and attack helicopters against the Ukrainian offense right now as we speak. And over a year ago, the Ukrainians asked for fighters to help them support them in this offense, but they don't have them. The Europeans have put pressure on the administration, and eventually they're going to get them. And that's likely to be at the end of the year. The same kind of pressure was put on tanks and armored vehicles, and the United States relented. But the fact of the matter is, the Ukrainians, despite the challenges that we've imposed on them with not giving them everything they need in a timely manner, they are going to put up a formidable fight here and taking back their territory. Strategically, they want all their territory back, even the territory that Russia took in 2014. Operationally, their goal, Shannon, is to reach the Sea of Azov, cut off the major supply routes from Russia to Crimea, the so-called land bridge. That'll be major success if they're able to achieve that. That'll give them the opportunity then to threaten Crimea with long-range weapon systems and drones, and possibly a ground attack the following year to wrap up taking their territory back. That is what they are about here. Tactically, they're dealing with Russia, who's better at defense than they are at offense. And they have to penetrate through their 600-mile lines of defense. That's New York City to Charlotte. And what they're doing is not much publicity, and people, because it's slow, it doesn't look like much is happening. A lot is happening as Ukrainians are trying to find the penetration points. What's the best place there to go through those obstacles and go through Russia's mainline defense forces as they're pursuing now their security forces who are in front of it? That takes time, and they don't want to get a lot of casualties trying to find out that answer, which is the best place to do it. If they get through the defenses, they'll exploit it and move rapidly to Russia's rear. That is what the plan is.
Well, General, we always appreciate your insight on all these multiple fronts, so thank you very much.
Yeah,
Good to see
great
you
talking
today.
to you, Shannon. And happy Father's Day to everybody out there.
Yeah, and to you, General.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.